I never imagined a janitor could change everything until he taught her to speak again. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The storm rolled in like a dark curtain, blotting out the sun. The sky roared, thunder clattering above my head. My heart pounded, racing with the chaos around me. I stood in the empty hallway of that old school, feeling lost and broken. There he was, the janitor. His sharp blue uniform seemed out of place, bright against the peeling beige walls. He pushed his mop like a sword through the remnants of the storm, the water puddling and swirling beneath his careful strokes. I could hardly breathe, the weight of every unsaid word pressing on my chest. His name was Mr. Lawson, but everyone called him the Whisper because legends surrounded him. They said he had eyes that could see into your soul, could hear the unspoken cries of the hurt. I never believed in that kind of magic until that day. My parents had fought again, voices sharp and cutting. I had tucked myself into a corner, wrapping my arms around my knees. My voice had vanished, hiding behind tears and fear. My words were trapped in a cage with no key. I needed to speak, but the silence screamed louder than my thoughts. I felt invisible. Mr. Lawson glanced over at me, his broom pausing mid-swish. The world around us faded. He looked like a statue carved from shadows and secrets, and I felt a pull in my gut, an urge to reach out, to let him in. But I was terrified. Frozen. "Take a deep breath," he whispered. The way he said it was almost musical, soft and calming. It cut through the noise in my head, just for a moment. I opened my mouth, but only silence came out. He stepped close, his face sincere and wise. "Words are like water," he said, "they find their way out if you let them flow." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to trust that this janitor, mopping away in his faded red sneakers, held somehow the answer to my tangled heart. But the more I looked into his eyes, the more questions flooded my mind. Why was he here? Why didn't he just leave like everyone else? He was more than just a janitor. There was something mysterious about him, an unexplainable truth that danced just out of reach. My shattered thoughts were interrupted by the shrieking bell signaling the end of the day. Kids flooded the halls, laughter echoing like a distant storm. I felt a rush of panic, the flood of faces blurring into a wave of noise. I wanted to speak. I wanted to yell out my pain, scream until the silence shattered. But instead I stood there, trembling hands balled into fists. What would come out if I opened my mouth? Would it be the truth, or just more silence? Mr. Lawson turned back to his mop, as if sensing my heart's struggle. "You are not alone," he said, barely above a breath. His back was to me, but I didn't need to see his face. I felt the weight of his words. But could a simple janitor really change the course of my life? I needed a miracle. As I gathered my things, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of something big. My heart raced. I wanted to believe that his mop could wipe clean the slate of my fears, that he might offer the key to my silence. But what if he was wrong? What if my words stayed trapped forever? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon, and while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The following day came like a whisper of hope, but the air was still thick with uncertainty as I returned to the school. The clouds did linger, even if today's rain had subsided. My heart dragged with me like an anchor caught in the undercurrent of my fear. I could almost hear Mr. Lawson's gentle voice urging me to breathe, and yet speaking felt like climbing a mountain. I maneuvered through the familiar crowds of students, their laughter and chatter vibrating through the hallways, reminders of a world I felt too disconnected from. Every face seemed full of ease and confidence, while I wore a shroud of unease. As I approached the clean-up supply closet where I'd first glimpsed Mr. Lawson, I spotted him from a distance, his head bent low over a bucket. He worked methodically, like a clock ticking away the seconds of my silence. I hesitated in the doorway, unsure if I should disturb the spell of solitude that clung to him. "Hey," I finally breathed, nearly choking on the syllable. My own voice startled me. It was a whisper of a whisper, fragile and scattered like the dandelion seeds caught in the wind. Mr. Lawson looked up, his blue uniform streaked with traces of what I could only assume was cleaning solution. His expression brightened, a genuine spark illuminating his kind, weary eyes. "You're back." "Yeah, I was wondering if you could help me." There it was, a first real request. I felt lighter yet heavier all at once, that old tension coiling tighter. "Of course," he said, stepping toward me. "What's on your mind?" I paused. The world threatened to swallow me whole again, but I pressed through the tightness in my throat. I need to talk. But sometimes I can't." I felt the stares of passing students, the urgency of their laughter like storm drums thundering in my chest. "I understand," he replied calmly. "Words can be tricky, and sometimes they hide when we need them most. Do you remember when I said words are like water?" I nodded, my eyes dropping to the floor. "I thought they would just come out. Like there were no rocks blocking the flow." "Exactly. But sometimes it takes a little quiet to find the path," he said, leaning closer, as if our conversation was sacred. "Let's take a breath together." With that, he inhaled slowly, drawing his hands to his heart, and then let the air seep away through his parted lips. I mirrored him, attempting to relax into the calming ritual. For a moment, there was a semblance of peaceful cacophony quieted, and the echoes faded. Then, unexpectedly, Mr. Lawson offered me a small, weathered notebook. Its cover was soft and patched, telling stories of wear and tear. "I want you to fill this with your thoughts. Take a moment each day to write down anything, whether words or sketches. Let it flow from you, just like I said." A multitude of emotions washed over me: gratitude, confusion, fear. "But what if it's not enough?" His gaze softened, unwavering. "It's more than enough. It's a start. Don't rush the river, no matter how mighty you dream it will be." I clutched the notebook like a lifeboat, unsure if it would save me or drag me under. "I'll try," I whispered, the tremor threading through my voice. The bell rang, slicing through our moment, and I felt a rush of uncertainty. Turning back toward the chaos of the hallways, I felt raw and exposed. But as I slid the notebook beneath my arm, an unexpected glimmer of hope flickered in my heart. Maybe this was my first step toward the surface. Later that evening, upon returning home, I clutched the notebook tightly, willing my thoughts to release as I sat cross-legged on my bed. The room still bore the weight of my parents' earlier fight, the tension a residual fog laced with words unspoken. As I began to jot down my feelings, the progress felt maddeningly slow. Each letter, each word, felt like unearthing a long-buried treasure. I was halfway through a sentence when the door slammed open, and my father strode in, a storm gathering in his eyes. "Have you seen your mother?" His voice rumbled harshly, cutting through the stillness. "No," I replied, my voice small, instinctively shrinking back into the folds of my blanket. He turned, visibly frustrated, and stormed out again, leaving the door ajar. The fear gripped me anew. Silence rose like a wall against my chest, churning with the urgent need to speak out. Just then, my phone buzzed beside me. A text. From a number I didn't recognize. "Are you okay?" It read simply, but the concern radiating from it felt as heavy as the growing darkness seeping into my room. Who could it be? Why did it matter? My heart raced with a churn of dread and curiosity, each pulse colliding against the heaviness that clung to me. I needed to know. Yet in that moment of tension, my fingers froze above the screen, and I knew, for every door promising freedom, the shadows loomed right behind. The next morning was stained with a gray that seemed to seep into the very fabric of my being. I couldn't shake off the nagging sense of dread that trailed me as I made my way to school, a heavy cloak of unease enveloping me. The remnants of my father's anger echoed in my mind, laced with the memory of my mother's silence that lingered like unfinished business. I arrived at school later than usual, the hallways teeming with students bustling toward classrooms, their laughter filling the air with an unfamiliar warmth one I didn't feel deserving of. Instead, I hid behind a stack of textbooks, watching them from the shadows, feeling their joy like a forbidden fruit just out of reach. But then, I spotted Mr. Lawson again, crouched in a corner, meticulously patching a tear in the gym's old fabric curtains. His strong hands moved with purpose, and for a moment, I felt drawn to him, as if he were a lighthouse cutting through my fog. "Hey!" I called out, surprised by the strength of my voice. The sound startled even me. He looked up, a smile breaking across his face like morning sunlight. "You're back! How did it go with the notebook?" I felt my breath hitch. "It's just hard. It feels like I'm trying to dig through stone rather than write." "Ah, yes. But stones have their stories too, you know," he replied, standing to meet me. He brushed off the dust from his trousers and stepped closer, his expression earnest. "Sometimes the hardest things to unearth carry the deepest treasures. What if we tried to dig together?" I hesitated, an old instinct to shy away from connection wrestling against a flicker of hope igniting inside me. Against all odds, I nodded. He guided me to a nearby bench, pulling out a worn piece of chalk from his pocket. "Let's start visualizing. If you were to draw a picture that represented how you feel, what would it look like?" My heart raced with uncertainty and the warmth of vulnerability. "I don't know," I admitted, pulling back, fearful of exposing my innermost self in such a revealing way. "Come on, just picture it," he encouraged, eyes twinkling with a gentle challenge. "Let your imagination come alive. You won't be judged here." For a moment, I mulled over his words as I watched the students around us. Some kids flitted by carefree, but then I caught sight of a group snickering at someone clutching their books too tightly. Bitterness and shame washed over me. My chest tightened as memories passed like shadows, the feeling of being an outsider prickling at my heart. Then I felt an unexpected warmth inside as Mr. Lawson began to sketch a simple wave in the dirt at our feet. Seeing his hands move fluidly, it struck me. A wave could roll both ways, the freedom to flow with the currents, and the might to crash against the rocks. "I want to draw a wave," I finally said, a sudden surge of clarity rushing through me. "Perfect. Just let it flow. You have everything you need right inside," he replied encouragingly. With that, I took the piece of chalk from him. Trembling fingers traced the outline of a cresting wave, my heart sinking with every curve I made. As colors of frustration and longing swirled on the ground, I realized how cathartic the act was, a tension easing with every deliberate stroke I drew. But just as my courage began to swell, the bell rang, echoing ominously throughout the corridor. The moment shattered. I glanced up, and anxiety crashed over me as students began to disperse. "What if they see?" I stammered, my voice barely above a whisper. Mr. Lawson's gaze remained firm, unwavering. "Believe in the journey, no matter how others perceive it. You're not alone in this." His reassurance lingered like sunlight through a crack, but my heart plunged with the weight of reality encroaching. Yet at that moment, even amidst the chaos, my sketch radiated with newfound life. Suddenly, the bell ceased, and a piercing call rang through the hall, sending chills up my spine. "Hey! You!" A voice boomed. It was Jason, the school bully, cutting through the throngs with malevolence. "What are you doing over there? Drawing like a kindergartner?" My breath caught, and I felt the wave inside me crashing down. But before I could look away, Mr. Lawson stepped boldly in front of me, a protective shield. "What's your issue, Jason?" he asked, coolly confronting the darker force in the sea of students. That simple, brave act caught me off guard. My heart raced with confusion and admiration at the sight of him standing firm, his presence disrupting the shadow that had long haunted me. "None of your business, janitor." "Just trying to get those weirdos to shut up," Jason sneered, but there was an underlying uncertainty in his eyes now. For a moment, I saw something shift in the crowd, a ripple of support from a few students who had overheard. They began to murmur amongst themselves, their body language shifting from judgment to solidarity. And then, just like that, I caught the moment, the threads of community woven into what once felt like a solitary prison. It was a tiny fissure of hope, glimmering and fragile but undeniable. But the familiar text notification jolted me from my thoughts, a stark reminder of my own shadows. I glanced at my phone, and in that moment of hope, the light fell upon yet another message from the unknown number. Please respond. I can help you. My heart thundered in my chest. Who was reaching out? And more importantly, would they care enough to truly help? The weight of the day's revelations bore down on me, but as I looked back at Mr. Lawson standing unwavering, I realized that perhaps hope could be found in the most unexpected places. The next day dawned, but the clouds lingering in the sky seemed more ominous than ever. I could hardly concentrate on anything but the unknown number that continued to haunt my thoughts like a whisper, demanding answers. During class, instead of listening to the teacher's monotonous lecture, I found myself doodling faint waves in the margins of my notebook, each one echoing the tumult of emotions churning inside me. A timid knock interrupted my reverie. It was Mr. Lawson, his face slightly flushed, as though he'd been braving the chill just to find me. Got a moment? He asked, peeking through the door as if he were testing the waters first. I hesitated before nodding and steeling myself to the tidal wave of uncertainty crashing over me. My heart raced at the thought of what he might say, but the warmth of his presence soothed some of my worries. Can we take that conversation from yesterday a little further? He asked, gesturing toward the courtyard. I know a spot where the noise of the school can't touch you. My stomach fluttered with a mix of anticipation and dread, but something told me to trust him. The way he spoke made me feel like I belonged somewhere, if only for just a moment. I followed him outside into the crisp air, where the sun pushed through the heavy cloud cover, casting light in unexpected corners. Sitting on a sun-kissed stone bench, I tried to quiet the swirling tempest of uncertainty as he sat down beside me. You drew a wave. That speaks volumes, he said gently, observing me on a level I'd come to cherish. I was just trying, I replied, anxiety constricting my words like a noose. Even my art doesn't feel good enough. Trying is enough, he reassured, resting his gaze upon the space between us as if it held great meaning. What if we explore what you want to say through it? Art can give voice to your thoughts when words fail you. That moment nudged me closer to the edge. I feared the vulnerable side of me that had long been silenced. I fiddled with the hem of my sleeve, wrestling with the remnants of my fears, before letting my eyes drift to the ground. There's just so much swirling inside. It's like a storm, and I don't know how to make it stop. Maybe that storm inside you can become the wave you drew, a force of nature, he suggested, his eyes soft with understanding. But what if it crashes? I whispered, barely able to keep my voice steady. Then we sculpt it together, he said earnestly. Nature has its own way of balancing the chaos. A part of me yearned to believe him. I clung to his words like a lifeline. The corners of my lips curled into a tentative smile as the image materialized in my mind, waves crashing against a sturdy shore, each drop giving life to something new. But just then, the shrill ring of my phone shattered my reverie. Panic rushed through me as I fished it from my pocket, battling the instinct to ignore yet another message from the unknown number. I opened it hesitantly. You're not alone. I see you. My breath hitched in my throat, blood pulsing in my ears. Before the revelation took root, Mr. Lawson's voice broke through my maelstrom. Hey, what's wrong? Nothing, I lied, my heartbeat drumming erratically. It's just someone is messaging me, but I don't know who they are. Do you think they might be a friend? He asked, his tone casual yet laced with concern. More like a warning. I can't shake the feeling that they know something. The truth hung heavy between us, the air thick with unspoken fears. What if you reached out? Mr. Lawson suggested. You could ask them what they want. You might find it opens up a new chapter. The thought sent a chill down my spine. Every instinct cried out against the possibility of opening up to a stranger, yet deep down lay a flicker of curiosity fighting to break through. I nodded slowly, the uncertainty anchoring me down, as Mr. Lawson's encouragement fortified my resolve. Okay, I whispered, a steely determination infusing my voice. I will. But moments later, I turned my attention back to my phone, hands trembling as I typed cautiously. Who are you? What do you want? Before I could hit send, a sharp laugh echoed nearby. I glanced up to see Jason approaching, flanked by his usual entourage. My heart sank as he locked onto me, a predator honing in on its prey. Look who we have here, a little artist. What a joke! What are your deep feelings today? A quicker fire of panic ignited inside me. Just as I prepared to retreat, something shifted in Mr. Lawson. He stood up, casting a shadow over me, creating a barrier between the weight of my fears and Jason's mocking smirk. Back off, Jason. You don't have the right to judge what you don't understand. Caught off guard, Jason faltered, his bravado flickering like a candle in the wind. But then, he sneered, the venom in his words unyielding. I understand that you're just a loser, and that'll never change. Why do you get off on being cruel? Mr. Lawson's voice grew steely, an unexpected fierceness radiating from him, knitting strength into the fabric of the moment. Something in Jason's demeanor shifted as the murmurs of support from other students grew louder around us. The tides were turning. But the fleeting warmth of solidarity was drowned by the notification sound on my phone. A new message appeared, and as I glanced down, the words sent shockwaves through me. "I'm watching you. Don't trust him." The color drained from my face, my heart plunging into the depths of despair as I read and reread the chilling text. An icy tendril of fear snaked around my heart as I glanced back at Mr. Lawson, his figure a beacon of strength standing against the visceral ocean of my challenges. But doubt flooded my mind. Was he truly an ally, or was this all part of something darker? The realization was brutal, and for a heartbeat, I felt every inch of progress I'd made crumble beneath me. In that moment, I realized that my journey to speaking my truth was far from over, and just when I thought I was beginning to ride the wave, I was swept back into uncertainty once more. The classroom, once a refuge, became more of a cage with every passing moment. The shadows of students whispering and tossing glances my way transformed from mere discomfort to palpable anxiety. I could feel the pressure of unspoken words pressing against my chest, suffocating and relentless. Mr. Lawson had stood up to Jason, something I hadn't expected, and yet it only amplified my inner turmoil. Was this newfound strength real, or just a fleeting moment of bravery splashed across the canvas of my fears? As the bell rang, scattering students into the hallways, I lingered behind, hesitant to rise from the stone bench that felt comfortingly familiar. Mr. Lawson waited patiently, his expression unreadable. But I could still sense the uneasy weight of the new revelation hanging in the air between us. "Are you all right?" he asked, kneeling down to meet my gaze. His honest concern flicked at the edges of my turmoil, but also stoked the fear that had taken root. "I don't know," I admitted, bitterness curling my words. I thought I was beginning to find my voice, but then I swallowed hard, the words becoming strangers in my mouth. "This person knows me, and I don't even know who they are. They may know something about you, but that doesn't mean they truly understand who you are," he replied softly. "You're more than what they perceive. You have to believe that. What if they're watching me? What if I trailed off, the implications too daunting to voice? What if this was all a part of something larger, something more sinister? Then you keep your head up and don't let them control the narrative," he urged, the tension in his voice whispering of ancient wisdom. "Your story deserves to be told, and your truth deserves to shine free of their shadows." The determination in his voice stirred something inside me, but fear still poisoned the well of my resolve. I stared into the depth of his eyes, those gentle wells of unwavering hope, and wondered if my truth could withstand the storm brewing around me. "I need to know who they are," I murmured almost to myself. "Then let's find a way to uncover that together." "You won't have to face this alone," he promised, leaving an imprint of warmth where doubt had flourished. In that moment, a glimmer of hope flickered within me, but it was quickly extinguished by another message lighting up my phone screen. "Look closer. Trust no one," it read. The words sent a chill through my bones, as if a dark watchtower had appeared on the horizon, shadowing my every move. My trembling fingers hovered over the screen, caught between the instinct to respond and the undeniable fear coursing through me. Suddenly, a movement caught my eye. I shifted my gaze outside the window, unconsciously seeking the sanctuary of the outside world. A maintenance worker was pushing a cart filled with cleaning supplies, his brow furrowed in concentration. He carried the weight of silence, as if burdened by untold stories. "Who's that?" I asked, momentarily forgetting my chaos as I pointed him out to Mr. Lawson. "Just the janitor," he replied with a tone of dismissal, but the conviction of the worker struck something deep within me. Something about the way he meticulously arranged his supplies spoke of quiet determination. But perhaps it was my moment of introspection, as I watched him lift a heavy bucket with surprising ease, that made me feel a connection. Maybe even janitors had tales that could stir hope amid hopelessness. "Maybe he has his own battles just like we do," I said, unwittingly finding solace in unexpected places. "Exactly," Mr. Lawson nodded, encouraging me forward. "Everyone has a story, and the more we listen, the more we learn about our own." But before I could reply, Jason re-entered the hall, bellowing laughter igniting fear in my already frayed nerves. His friends followed, masks of cruel amusement plastered across their faces. "Look at the little artist, talking to the janitor now. What's next? A paintbrush as a sidekick?" he barked, each word a punctuation to my dismay. The janitor's head lifted for a brief moment, his eyes meeting mine. There was something in that glance, a fleeting connection, empathy woven into an otherwise ordinary encounter. But as I turned back to Mr. Lawson, my heart sank. Jason's voice cut through the shadows of my rising hope, drowning it beneath the waves once more. "It's pathetic, really. You should be grateful that someone even wants to help you at all," he sneered, his voice dripping with malice. His words ignited a fire. I felt an urge to respond, to reclaim my voice, but panic clutched at my throat, silencing me once more. I looked to Mr. Lawson, searching for a reassuring gesture. The gravity of what lay ahead was like teetering on the edge of a precipice, fear swirling like a tempest inside of me, while a newfound determination nudged me forward. But just as life seemed poised at a balanced edge, unraveling beauty from chaos, a sudden click echoed through the hala, sound unmistakably loud and laden with dread. All heads turned toward the sound at once, and my heart dropped when I found the janitor standing frozen, his shoulders tense, a darkened expression painting his features. The hallway that had been filled with laughter became enveloped in an uncomfortable silence that screamed uncertainty. "I know who you are," he said, his voice steady yet heavy with the weight of truth. Before anyone could digest his words, he took a step forward, and suddenly, all eyes were on me. The air was thick with uncharted fear that stole the breath from my lungs, and the room grew darker as secrets threatened to spill from shadows I had barely begun to understand. A fresh wave of uncertainty crashed over me, and I felt the ground shift beneath my feet. I was about to embark on a journey deeper than I had ever anticipated, and it left my heart racing with equal parts dread and inexplicable curiosity. What truths would unfold? What secrets lay hidden? The brief silence hung in the air, thick with unspoken fears and apprehensions. It felt as if a door had just been ajar, revealing a glimpse into the untold depths of my existence. The janitor's gaze fixed on me with an intensity that bore into my soul, the weight of his words pressing down like a heavy shroud. "I know who you are," it echoed within me, drowning me in a tumult of confusion and apprehension. It was as if the entire world had suddenly tilted on its axis, throwing me into an uncertain abyss. "Excuse me?" Jason's voice sliced through the tension, laced with incredulity. "What's that supposed to mean?" A ripple of whispered speculation fluttered among the students, fueling the atmosphere of anticipation, but all I could focus on was the growing void in my chest. I blinked at the janitor, hoping desperately he would clarify, that he would offer me some semblance of comfort. Instead, he bore the weight of secrets carved upon his face, each line telling stories swallowed by neglect. "Everyone sees you, but you don't truly see them." "Not yet," he replied, his voice steady, each word measured, yet it vibrated with hidden vulnerability. "What the hell do you know?" Jason shouted, but I was no longer tuned into his taunts. I was solely transfixed on the janitor, whose dark apron caught the light, a stark reminder of his usually overlooked presence. "Sometimes, it's the ones who clean up after others who can tell the deepest stories," he continued, his gaze softening, unraveling underneath the scrutiny of the crowd. "You have a voice that's meant to be heard, even if you're afraid. The words lanced through my crumbling defenses, releasing a floodgate of emotions I had tried desperately to keep at bay. Was this janitor still human? He wasn't what I had expected. There was a distinct understanding in his tone, a sincerity that sparked warmth even in the cold, brutal environment surrounding us. Look, I know you're scared, Mr. Lawson stepped in, positioning himself protectively beside me. But fear doesn't get to dictate who you are. Is he trying to be some kind of hero now? Jason laughed mockingly, his voice dripping with venom. Yet, I felt an unfamiliar warmth rising within me, momentarily silencing his jibes. Even amidst the smirking faces of Jason's entourage, I could sense that something was shifting. The janitor's presence carved a small but significant space for defiance within me. I had spent so long succumbing to the pressure of their words, but perhaps, just perhaps, this man was right. Enough. My voice echoed with surprising clarity, cutting through the taunts like a blade. I was startled by my newfound assertiveness, even as it trembled. You don't know anything about me. You don't know what it's like to feel trapped by your own fears. The reaction was immediately a collective gasp that transformed the atmosphere from a cauldron of mockery to one of intrigued anticipation. I could feel the pulse of my heartbeat thrumming in my ears, the adrenaline surging as I stood taller, buoyed by the tiny flicker of resolve ignited by the janitor's words. See? The janitor's eyes glimmered with approval, and for a brief moment, our gazes connected, an unspoken bond sealing a promise between us. Speak your truth. Don't let them paint the narrative for you. But just as my heart began to swell with something resembling courage, a sharp crunch sounded behind me, a piece of paper underfoot crumbling against the surface of the tiled floor. I turned to see what broke my growing momentum, and my breath caught as I recognized the note, the torn edge inked with the same chilling warning from earlier. Look closer. Trust no one. Jason's laughter became subdued, and while his eyes darted between me and the janitor, I felt the atmosphere thicken again, this time with an ambivalence that mirrored my racing thoughts. Was it possible that I was caught in a trap far larger than I could fathom? Who are you? I found my voice again, demanding answers from this man whose insight seemed to unravel the very fabric of my existence. With every moment, I felt deeper entangled in the web of uncertainties. He paused, hesitating as his eyebrows knitted together. Someone who has seen too much, the silent observer. But as I opened my mouth to press further, another flicker of movement caught my attention from the corner of my eye. A shadow slipped in and out of view, a familiar figure lurking just beyond the threshold of the hallway, someone I had hoped would never find me like this. My heart dropped, dread pooling heavily in my stomach as I recognized the silhouette. It was Ava, my closest friend. But there was something off about her posture, the hesitance in her movements screaming a warning as she hesitated at the doorway, clutching her backpack. Her expression was grave, shadows creeping through the lightness of her face, reminding me of dark clouds before a storm. Ava! I called out, my voice faltering as the laughter faded into ominous whispers again, but her gaze bore into me as if she held a secret that tethered both our fates. Suddenly the early relief I had tentatively grasped slipped away. I was faced with two worlds, the one I broke free from, hesitant and fearful, and another, swirling with tangled complications and unexpected courage brought to life by a mere janitor. A void loomed large in between, dark secrets and the shadows of truth hanging precariously as I braced for the revelation that would shatter everything I thought I understood. Whatever awaited me would challenge my resolve even further. But I had done something, I had spoken. Now I needed to unravel the truth, for better or worse, to finally reclaim my voice. And in the depths of uncertainty, I sensed this was merely the beginning of a tumultuous journey I could never have anticipated. With my heartbeat trembling rhythmically against the silence, all I could do was wonder, what did Ava know? The hallways felt labyrinthine as I stood frozen, my gaze locked onto Ava's as she carefully crossed the threshold. The energy shifted, weighty and palpable, as if the very air bristled with unsaid words. The whispers around us diminished, the students now watching with curiosity, their mockery replaced by trepidation. I could feel the walls closing in, tightening around me, while my heart pounded against my ribcage, a frantic echo of my thoughts. Ava, what's wrong? I stammered, my voice a fragile thread woven through the thick tension. I wanted to run towards her, to escape the scrutinizing eyes of my peers, yet I was bound by an invisible tether, caught between fear and the desperate need for understanding. Her lips parted, and I braced myself for the words that would either pull me back into darkness or guide me into light. "We need to talk," Ava said, her tone steady but laced with urgency. Something flickered in her deep brown eyes, a glimmer of dread that sent chills dancing down my spine. As she took another hesitant step forward, the janitor shifted slightly, as if sensing the gravity of the moment. "It'll be nearby," he said quietly, the softness of his voice oddly comforting amidst the chaos swirling around us. I nodded, grateful for his presence, which ironically felt like a shield against the impending storm. Ava approached slowly, the distance between us feeling like an abyss. The students, once amused, were watching like it was a spellbinding play unraveling before their eyes, and yet my heart thumped only for Ava, the person who had always been my refuge in the desperate sea of high school. "What do you know?" I pressed as she stopped just out of reach, the distance between us bittersweet, echoing the years of camaraderie we had shared. My pulse quickened, and the anticipated revelation hung thick in the air around us. Ava inhaled sharply, her shoulders trembling as if she were a fragile leaf caught in a windstorm. "I've seen things that don't make sense, things about you and others." The weight of her words wrapped around me like a cold blanket. I didn't want to believe it, but there are whisper secrets that might put us both in danger. A chill dashed through my veins. Danger? What do you mean? The reality was morphing before me, confusing and disorienting. She glanced around, her eyes darting back to the janitor, as if reassured by his presence. A hold on her expression flickered, a mix of fear and something else, something close to resolve. "There are certain people who are watching. I think they don't want you to know the truth." I heard a conversation. "They mentioned your name, about how you're stronger than you think but also a target." The shock crashed over me like a wave, nearly sending me reeling. I had to steer my mind away from the implications, but the pull was too strong. Am I strong? Or simply a pawn in someone else's game? "What do you mean by stronger than I think?" "Ava, just tell me." My voice rose, a crescendo of my anxiety surging. Ava's hands trembled, and I could see a subtle sheen of tears glimmering in her eyes. Emotions swirled in an amalgam of concern and fear. "There's something about your past that could change everything, things your mom kept hidden, things that could explain everything, and they want to keep it buried." Her words ricocheted through the walls of my mind, awakening echoes I thought I'd silenced. My family had always been a tightly